He threw a leg across that iron horse and pulled the throttle down. A million things rushing through his mind like that rumbling sound. Living life in his own eyes, direction isn't clear. So searching all these years.
Welcome to Answers to Mars Hill. This is Pastor Ski of the Russian Wind Biker Church in Holbrook, New York. I'm also the New York State Elder of Bikers to Christ Motorcycle Ministries. I want to welcome you to this weekly show, Answers from Mars Hill. The last several weeks, I've kind of started to lay a foundation about the Christian faith. You know, these conversations are for people who have questions, maybe don't know, maybe have heard a lot of things that are not true about the Christian faith, and as I started the series to help you understand the Christian perspective, if not to bring you to an understanding and possibly a curiosity of this faith, but also that you can understand that the true Christian faith, it's something credible, it's something that we're not crazy for dedicating our lives to, and so I've tried to lay the foundation of God for a couple weeks, and then the credibility of the Bible, the book that we view as the Holy Scriptures written by God. And this week I want to start conversations about questions that many people have out there, and I'm sure many of you have out there, just about life in general, how God works in day-to-day life, certain issues in our culture, in our society, from a Christian perspective. And this week I want to start a 2, maybe 3 week conversation on if God is a good God, why is the world so evil? Why are there so many things out there as far as tragedies and brokenness and suffering? And how could God be good? Especially, looking at it from a Christian faith, and we profess that God is a good God, God is a loving God. And so, many people out there, and even people from within the faith, is why is all this suffering and just tragedy and darkness in the world if God is a good God and He actually cares about us. So I want to start first of all in laying a little bit of groundwork of my experiences, because I think it's important when someone is sharing a thought about God that, how has it affected their life? Do they actually have a perspective from their life that might be able to give us insight into how God works in this life? So I've lived a life that has had, a lot of darkness, a lot of sadness, a lot of loss. I've lost 3 siblings when I was young. That died in the first week of their life. I was sexually abused as a child by a relative. My mother had a nervous breakdown and was mentally unstable and was non-engaging for a lot of my childhood. One of my uncles was killed in a hunting accident. At least we think it was an accident when I was a child. My father's only brother really was lost for life in the world of mental illness. Some trauma came into his life and threw him into a state of depression, bipolar, and until he died in his 60s, from about the age of 20, he was in mental institutions, and I can still remember walking into those institutions when we'd visit my uncle, and just he was there, but he wasn't there. And so, just there's so much darkness in this world, and I've seen a lot of things. Myself, I have had a bout with drug addiction while I was in college. I had a sister. I have a sister who is 40, I guess about 46 right now. When she was 4 years old, she had a bad virus that attacked her brain, and she went into a coma while she was in my arms, and since then has been in a vegetative state for close to 43 years. I've been robbed at gunpoint. I had a son that was sexually abused by a relative. I've had several bouts with death, bike accident that I probably shouldn't be here. And the latest I mention once in a while is my bout with cancer. And so, you look at all these tragedies, suffering, dark things that happen in this life, and you're just like, how can there be a God? How can God be good? And I think it's probably a question we've all asked ourselves, either consciously or possibly unconsciously. Why all this evil? How can God justify all this is going on? If God is good and loving, why? We live in a world of terror attacks, school mass murders, sex slavery, sex abuse, violence, wars, divorce and families breaking up, world hunger. So something is really wrong, and this can't be how life is actually supposed to be. And so, this is a struggle with a conversation of faith, because how can I trust in a God that allows all this to go on? Why isn't the world a better place? I've talked about God, I've talked about the Bible and the Christian faith for 2 weeks. Does God exist? Theism versus atheism. The Bible, was it written by man? Was it written by God? And now a new challenge, a new question, and maybe one of the more important questions that we have in this life is, why? Why is this world? Why is life the way it seems? And so, I want to start with maybe talking a little bit about those out there who have decided not to search any farther. You've given the thought of God pretty much as much time as you're willing to invest into it, and maybe you've settled into an atheist mindset. Well, for those of you out there that have settled into that way of thinking, I have good news and I have bad news. Obviously, the good news is this is a question you don't have to wrestle with. You don't have to worry about is God good, is God bad. You don't have this question, and it really doesn't concern you. The bad news, unfortunately, is in the view of a worldview of atheism or humanism. Life is just what it is. The state of the world is just a natural evolutionary direction or de-evolutionary condition of the human species. And so as time goes on, as power becomes more empowered and weakness becomes weakness, you're left with a world that is basically the survival of the fittest. The only complication is whoever has the best weapons wins. Good nor evil has an advantage, except with the exception that evil is more willing to use weapons developed than good. So whoever has the best weapons, whoever has the more zealous inclination to use those weapons, will ultimately win, both individually and as civilizations. If you still, really wish to use the word civilized and civilizations concerning this conversation. And so there really is no changing the course of fate in this finite humanity. If you're looking at an atheist worldview, a view that there is no God or a God that is not engaged. Solomon in the Bible said, without God, it's all meaningless. You live and then you die. Everything in the middle is just minutia. It's just details. And so positive feelings, good accomplishments, they all die with us. And negative, evil, destructive accomplishments, they also die with us. With that viewpoint, there's no reason for hope, no reason for change. Why spend your life trying to better things for humanity? Because it all really means nothing in the end. So as the Bible says, eat, drink, and be merry. It's all going to come to the end one way or another one day. And so when you consider atheism or the belief in no God, the survival of the fittest evolution theology combined with the humanity that has no source to establish good or bad, noble from evil, right or wrong, you basically get what you get. All evil in the world, what goes on that's in our mind's eye is bad, tragedy. Never forget there are people out there even that get great joy, a sense of satisfaction, and even relish their part in what you have deemed a tragedy. And so there's no deciding who ultimately is right, sane from insane, humane from inhumane. And so if you're a true atheist, this is the reality you live in. There's no such thing as destiny, for all a conglomeration of random atoms, molecules, flesh and blood that have come together randomly, and we die randomly, and our atoms get recycled into some other random molecular abstract as time just rolls on, and all is basically meaningless. Also, there are people who say that they don't believe there is a God because of all the bad things that exist, but actually they blame God. They're angry at God, and they feel that by denying his existence, they're punishing this God that they say they don't believe, but there's still an anger that that hides deep within them. And I think this group probably has far more than we think. I think far more than people who honestly don't believe there could be a God. And I can really feel for you if this is you out there, because of everything I've gone through. And when we come back from this first break, I want to talk a little bit about people who do believe in God and have a hatred or even a disdain for a God that, all they know, all they feel, all they kind of think is real actually does make space for God, but they can't forgive him for what's happening to people around him. They blame him for all kinds of things. I constantly, as I minister to people and as I try to help people through things, they ask questions like, how could God take that person? How could God do this? And there's a vast misconception of this bad element in the world, that actually God is the cause and the perpetrator of it. And so I want to talk about that a little bit when we come back from our first commercial. But I want to give my sponsors a couple of minutes to share some information, and then we'll continue with the second segment of this show on the good God in a bad world.
Hey everybody, this is Motorcycle Mike, the personal injury lawyer. I've been riding motorcycles my entire adult life. During the course of my 30-year career as a lawyer, I've also represented countless injured motorcyclists. If you're one of them, I can be of assistance to you. Go to my website, please, motorcyclemikeesq.com. I'll always be there for you. I'm on your side when you ride.
Hi, my name is Sharon Gillette, and I'm the owner of One Stitch at a Time. I've been doing this since I'm 9 years old, but it became full-time when my husband was diagnosed with cancer several years ago. And I never went back to work because I wanted to take care of him. I feel what makes me stand out is that I care. I take a personal interest in your project. I take the time to find your correct fit and treat you like a friend, not just a customer. So whether it's embroidery, making patches, printing shirts, doing alterations and repairs, or bringing your ideas to life, you can call me at 631-428-1245 or visit my website at www.onestitchatatime.co.
Welcome back to Answers from Mars Hill. This is Pastor Ski again. And I want to continue this conversation on how could God be good in a world that just seems so not good. And when I left off before the break, I was talking about a group of people who do sincerely believe there is a God, but can't forgive him for what he has happened to us or to the people we love, or even injustice and and terror around the world. And we almost feel that we can punish God by not trying to seek Him more, not trying to know Him more, and certainly not trying to trust Him any more than we already do. And I fell into this category for probably over 20 years of my life. I mentioned, I have a sister who I believe is close to 46, 47 years old now, and she was born with a birth defect, and she needed medication for the rest of her life, and her immune system was very compromised. And when she was close to 4 years old, she had a very bad virus, and the virus attacked her brain, and she got encephalitis. And I remember like yesterday when she went into a coma in my arms, and she's been in a semi-vegetative state for going on 43 years. I kind of remember the date very clearly because it was 5 days after my engagement party with my wife. And so we ended up going through a 9-month engagement, having to go in hospitals and spend a lot of our time with my sister in the hospital. And so I was very angry about God for a long time. And it wasn't like an overt that I was just angry and bitter, but there was a distrust, and there was a disconnect that I just would not trust any part of my life, even any kind of asking or believing for anything, because of this trauma that affected me with my sister. And so I think the question we ask sometimes is, why do we blame God for all the bad things in the world? And that tends to be our natural response, but very few people actually thank Him when things go our way and when things are good. It's always quick to blame, and there's so much in the world that's good also. And not to divert from the question we're dealing with, but sometimes we forget just how much different things could be if things were worse. Why isn't the world a better place? I mean, we all look around, especially now with what's going on in the Middle East, and even in our own country and the divide, and even for some of us that have a deep faith, why do we have to live with the darkness and evil of this humanity? And is there an answer? And fortunately, there is an answer, and it is addressed in the scriptures of the Bible. The Bible, as I've been talking about the last several weeks, I believe, is God's conversation with us, revealing Himself, revealing truth of what's all around us, why things are the way they are, how to redeem things, how to live a better life. And so within this book that the Christian faith is based on, I believe you can find answers. Bad is still going to be bad. And, the answers might not make everything great, but at least it's nice to know that there are answers. The truth of the matter is, the short answer for why the world is the way it is because basically we asked for it. Now that may sound strange and might even anger some of you out there, but the short answer and the bottom line is, we asked for things in this realm of humanity that has actually caused the downfall and the dehumanization of people. Who could change the world? Who could make everything good and right and perfect and free again? Well, obviously God could, but He doesn't. At least not yet. At least not right now. If we say God is all powerful, all loving, don't we think the world wouldn't be this way? And we still shake our fist at God, and we think we can change His mind. But God doesn't budge, and God doesn't change a thing. And we ask ourselves, why? Basically because He's giving us exactly what we asked for. A world where we can treat Him as if He is absent, doesn't exist, as if He's unnecessary. In order to address the question of a world gone mad, the first thing we have to talk about is what God are you going to condemn? What God are you going to convict or even ask questions of? And again, I'm trying to bring an understanding through the Christian faith. And when we think about all these other faith distinctives or philosophies, religions, some of them actually have a God that promotes and encourages violence, encourages terror, treachery, to promote himself, to keep humanity in a place of terror and fear of this God. And for those kind of faith distinctives, this question is actually meaningless in those religions, and even sometimes questioning is an act of defiance and could require punishment by those gods. Then there's philosophies, spiritualities that don't have a definitive God, but a philosophy with an enlightened philosopher, a teacher, and at most maybe an energy, a sort of inner spiritual enlightenment. And there's no space or even an entity to funnel that anguish, that helplessness, that acceptance of the human condition, and a numbing of the inner man so as not to allow it to surface. Sometimes is the goal of some of these philosophies, and removing yourself from a human condition emotionally and mentally enables you to not be broken, to not have this dark world actually invade your soul and bring you to a place of despair. And then there's polytheistic theologies, many gods. Sometimes with those gods, I think in the Viking gods, the Norse gods, sometimes even the gods are fighting amongst themselves, and your life is best suited to kind of stay out of their way, and we kind of view that everything that is bad and tragic is a result of angry gods warring and fighting battles, and often even using humans as weapons against each other. And so, some philosophies, they kind of are in a mindset of don't enrage the gods because they're already angered. And we look to kind of more spiritual philosophies like Wiccan and paganism and things. And there's a belief that we're all born innocent of everything, of sin, everything that is wrong, counter to the reality of the state of really a newborn human. In Christianity, we believe that there's an inherent brokenness in all humans that are born. It's a defect of character after the initial fall. And one of the things that I mention every so often, that how do we know that these things are inherent when we're born? And I bring up the story, the thought of my 3-year-old grandson and granddaughter. You put them in a room, put one toy in that room, and see what happens. You'll see what the natural state of humanity is. They've never been trained to be selfish. They've never been trained to not share. It's something that is not taught. It's in the spiritual genetic makeup of every human. And so, these tendencies as we grow up as a person are complicated by the interaction with other humans, different tendencies after being corrupted by everything that's around us as we develop. And over time, you get what you see all around you. You open your eyes, you go outside, you see what's on television, you hear things, and you turn on your electronic device nowadays, and you just can't help but be affected by everything around the world. So this question of God being good in a treacherous world is actually very encouraging to me, as the only God man would actually ask this question is the God of the Bible, the God that really promotes himself as good, as loving, as full of grace. There really is no God that this is a relevant question to actually ask. And so this question has to be addressed from the perspective of the God that people want to indict for the evil of the world. The one God that would be someone you might be angry at because it sounds like and it seems like he is kind of contradicting what he says he's all about. And so if we want an explanation and an understanding within the framework of a God described as good, loving, and compassionate, who is also holy and righteousness, there is only one, and we need to see what he says and how his working within creation, how his working in humanity actually works. And within the Bible, there are answers to the hard questions, answers for pain and suffering and sorrow. And so after the next break, we're going to really go to the beginning and find out why this humanity broke down, why the relationship with God and man is one that he is not going to interfere, but he's going to give us a way out. He's not going to come in and stop everything, but he's going to give us a way to change the tide, one person at a time, one culture at a time, one group of people at a time, and kind of bring in a healing of the human condition within the darkness that the world is. And so when we come back from a couple of words from our sponsor, I want to go to the beginning and kind of explain from a Christian perspective why this great project of humanity broke down in the first place and why God doesn't interfere. So we'll be back in a few minutes with this question.
Hey everybody, this is Motorcycle Mike, the personal injury lawyer. In addition to representing injured motorcyclists for over 30 years now, during that same time, I've represented countless car crash victims and construction workers injured on construction sites. If you need my assistance, go to my website, motorcyclemikeesq.com. I will always be there for you.
Welcome back to Answers from Mars Hill. Again, this is Pastor Ski, and we're continuing a conversation on how could a good God, or how could God be good in a world that just seems so not good. And looking at this from a Christian perspective to get some understanding on how the Christian faith views this, how the Christian faith has come to an understanding and be at peace with a world that is in chaos. We really need to go back to the beginning and see what happened. And the story I'm going to go through is a story most of you have heard. Whether you're a Christian or non-Christian, you kind of know what we believe as far as the beginning. But I'm going to explain how this all works into what we ended up with today and how God can still be considered a good God. See, a loving God created us. And according to the words of the Bible, everything was good. There was no evil. There was nothing bad. He made it all, and there was no jails, no disease, no courts, because the reflection of humanity was just a reflection of God. You know, God called all creation good. When he created man, when he created woman, he said that it was very good. And so he said he created us in his image and likeness. And what does that actually mean? There are two things that God gave us that really are unique to the human species in this creation, in this world. And those two things are free choice, free will, and the gift of creativity. You know, the gift of creativity is a gift of imagination. You know, we can close our eyes and picture something, and we can bring that picture from the spiritual into the real. You know, you think about someone who pictures a skyscraper, and it's in his mind, and he can have a vision of it, and so he can put it on paper, he can draw it, he can put all the particulars in it, and then he can build it. And so man is really the only the only creature that can do that. All other creatures, all other animals and birds are going to do what they do. You know, a bird's going to build a nest. A beaver is going to build a dam. And so they all have things that just by instinct that they will do. And actually, when you think about humans, we're the only ones that go against our own instincts. Every other creature does what they do. But we, because of these gifts / curses of free will, free choice, and the gift of creativity, it has brought a lot of things into this reality that God never intended. You know, we can create a child, we can create a legacy, we can create a future. We have relationships that include trust, love, and learning, and these were all really downloaded into the first humans in a perfect environment and a perfect humanity that hadn't been corrupted by even what the mind could conceive. The first humans, they had everything. Their sustenance was there. The environment was free of pollution, free of wars, free of conflict, no disease, anything that was detrimental to the fulfillment of life, joy, peace, hope, and purpose just wasn't there. And so all was as it was intended by God, by our loving Creator, and life was as He had envisioned it. And He was a caring God, and as we in the Christian faith also refer to Him as a Father, and we're family. And the thing about freedom of choice is it's been both a blessing and it's been a curse. You know, we look around us and we look how technology and everything that we experience kind of gets better and better, and it's more creative, and anything we can imagine we can bring into reality. And it's been both a blessing and it's also been a curse. Free will and choice is something that's important because in order for a true relationship to exist, there must be a choice. And how we relate to each other, and also how we relate to God. You know, if we choose to be a friend, and friendship is given, and it's given by choice. It's not by compulsion. It's not like we're machines that are going through motions. We choose to live as we wish. For those choices of where we live, how we live, what we do with our life. We choose to love one another or not want to love one another. Love is freely given, and that's by choice. See, love has power because when someone chooses to give you their love, there's nothing that really approaches that experience. See, love is something that can't be forced or coerced. You can't tell someone, or you can't be created to have to be in love with someone, because when you take the choice away, you take really the reality of what love is, because love is a choice. You know, love has power because when someone chooses to give you their love, there's nothing again that approaches that experience. A true and honest and fair God gave us everything, everything we would ever want, everything we would ever ask, everything that was good, and He held nothing back from us. But the problem is, in order to have a relationship, even with God, a true relationship, there needed to be freedom of choice. You know, God freely loved us out of His own choice. And in order for that to be reciprocal, because everyone, you know, wants love, we all want love, God would like us to be in a love relationship. That involves a choice. Now, if there's a choice, that means there has to be an option. And so, you know, before we want to indict God and shake our fist at God, we need to know His intent and our culpability. You know, God created everything for us and it was good. In all of creation, there was one decision that man had to make. One thing that a loving father said that we shouldn't do, and he placed it in the center of man's environment. And as we know in the story, he says, do not eat of the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. God didn't deceive us. God did nothing to harm us. He didn't put something where we could stumble over it by accident. It had to be a choice to do something that God said would not be in our best interest, that would actually harm us. And he had to place that there so that we would have a choice. You know, it had to be, love has to be a chosen commodity. Love can't exist in this, you know, mankind, the pinnacle of God's creation, unless there was a choice. And God didn't hide anything. He actually warned man with the starkest of warnings. He said, in that day you eat of the tree of good and evil, you will surely die. Death would come to your dreams. Death would come to your purpose. Death would come to relationships. Death would come to our environment. Our unique relationship with this planet and the universe would be damaged and would die a slow death. He created for our good pleasure everything that's out there. And as a result of this choosing the one thing that he said we shouldn't choose, death to these human bodies, to our soul that is contained in our body, came into reality. You know, God never and has never deceived us. He told us all that was good, gave us all the most important, the most poignant declaration of the result of making one wrong choice. And it would lead to the infinite possibility of wrong choices. You know, out of an infinite good choices, man heard and listened to another voice. And that voice informed them, deceived them. Voice who said, nah, you won't die. We didn't listen to the one voice that was honest and was all about life. You know, but we listened to the voice of the liar and the deceiver, and we made the one choice, and we haven't stopped listening to that other voice from that day forth. You know, forbidden fruit that day became the intrigue, and it still haunts humans and manipulates us. You know, we kind of know that things are kind of, if somebody says not to do something, there's an intrigue that is added to that very thing that we want to do that. And so if we had never known the knowledge of evil, what evil would have meant, we wouldn't have the breakdown in relationships. We wouldn't have the misappropriation of our physical relationships with each other, possessions, what we have. And so what happened was it began a gradual acceleration of the demise and the de-evolution of the human condition that began in that moment. You know, shame was introduced, regret, relationships broken, relationships with God, relationship with each other. Man was hiding from God. They were blaming each other. If you read the story, it's actually kind of, I'm not going to say funny, but, you know, the man's blaming the wife's blaming God, and if you think about it, that's where the whole blaming God came into the conversation. You know, the man said to God, if you hadn't given me this woman, this never would have happened. And so, you know, as we continue this conversation in the last segment, I want to talk through the breakdown from that point on and how we got to where we are. And again, this is the first week of a 3-week conversation, because I think this is probably the most important question that we can actually ask and have answered, because the world is not getting any better. And so how can we be convinced that God is a good God, God is a loving God, and God actually cares for his creation down here? So when we come back, we'll continue this conversation, and a word from our sponsors.
Hey everybody, this is Motorcycle Mike, the personal injury lawyer. I've been riding motorcycles my entire adult life. During the course of my 30-year career as a lawyer, I've also represented countless injured motorcyclists. If you're one of them, I can be of assistance to you. Go to my website, please, motorcyclemikeesq.com. I'll always be there for you. I'm on your side when you ride.
Hi, my name is Sharon Gillette, and I'm the owner of One Stitch at a Time. I've been doing this since I'm 9 years old, but it became full-time when my husband was diagnosed with cancer several years ago. And I never went back to work because I wanted to take care of him. I feel what makes me stand out is that I care. I take a personal interest in your project. I take the time to find your correct fit and treat you like a friend, not just a customer. So whether it's embroidery, making patches, printing shirts, doing alterations and repairs, or bringing your ideas to life, you can call me at 631-428-1245 or visit my website at www.onestitchatatime.co.
Hello and welcome back to Answers from Mars Hill. This is Pastor Ski again from the Russian Wind Biker Church. Continuing in this last segment for today on the conversation of how could God be good in a world that is full of suffering, full of brokenness, terror, injustice. And so we kind of left off. I'm trying to go back to the beginning and just give those people out there an understanding of through the lens of the Christian faith and how we believe this humanity started, what God intended, and how we threw a monkey wrench into the whole plan. How we got from being a very, very good and loving humanity to where we are today. And so, in the last segment, I talked a little bit about, what the Bible says about the fall of man, that God gave man a choice, because without choice, love can't exist. In order to feel loved, it has to be someone's free will decision to love you. Otherwise, we're just going through a robotic existence. And so there is no emotional attachment. There's no relationships, and then we mentioned about creativity, which was the second characteristic of God, that He gave man, that we can take what we imagine and we can put that and bring it into the tangible reality of life. And so I talked about what happened right after man made the one bad decision out of hundreds and thousands of good decisions, and how the husband and wife were blaming each other, and then they started blaming God right at the beginning. Man just said, if you hadn't given me this woman, we wouldn't be here right now. And it's actually, it's a sad but kind of almost humorous blame game that went on from the beginning. And one of the saddest things, it only took one generation for this brokenness and this darkness that entered the human realm to result in the first murder. One generation brought jealousy, ego, hate, and despair and darkness. And as we know in the story, Cain killed his brother Abel out of jealousy, because as almost the Smothers Brothers played around with, Dad like you best, and that was kind of like the tension that actually caused Cain to kill his brother. And so this voice that spoke into humanity, that was not the voice of God, convinced man that God was trying to hold something back. God had given us everything. And there was one thing that God said, you need to have a choice. I'm going to place this here. And I'm going to tell you, if you make this one bad choice, it's going to bring death and despair into your life. And unfortunately, this is a voice we still hear all the time. Many things around us, bad decisions we make, things we do to nature, things that are detrimental to our life, to our relationships, and even to our planet. You know, we should never blame God for the condition of the human condition. You know, we asked for the very thing He told us would kill us. You know, that the garden where everything was good, and that tree, which was the knowledge of good and evil. And this is what the deceiver, according to our faith and what we believe, actually coerced man to do, making that bad decision. See, God already said everything was good. You go through the whole account. God created that and it was good. God created that and it was good. And the world was good and the universe was good. And the vegetation and the animals and the fishes and then man was very good. And so when the deceiver came and said God's holding back, and this one decision was the knowledge of good and evil, he failed to tell them they already had the knowledge of good. All they got from that one moment of not listening to what God advised brought evil. That's all we got. And it's the one thing that has wrecked and continues to really cause the demise of this humanity. And so, you know, we asked for it and we got it. And this is where we are. And over the next 2 weeks, I'm going to continue to explain the gradual breakdown to how we got to where we are, and also how God is still good, and God still wants to redeem, and God still wants to give us peace and understanding and hope and joy in this world that is full of chaos, and also to help us to make a difference, to be people individually and corporately that can get together to redeem what this was supposed to be. And so, you know, I want to end this first conversation here, a kind of a broad understanding of what got us here. I'm going to be talking a lot more about a depth and a body of understanding of this question of God being good when everything around us is awful. You know, when you think about it, we live in the aftermath of a few thousand years and many generations of bad choices that create worse choices, that create more and more deadly choices from generation to generation. And so, you know, the ability to create what we can imagine is still an extraordinary gift when it's informed by love and kindness and goodness and friendship, generosity, hope, and purpose. You know, we see this gift that God gave us of free will and imagination and being able to create what the mind can conceive has created all kinds of breakthroughs in just how we live this life. And actually part of how God has helped us to navigate and kind of redeem to an extent this humanity is things we've talked about in science and medicine, that we have men and people today that are, through what they can imagine, through what they know of creation and molecules and diseases and viruses and bacteria, that they can imagine and then they can create cures, ways to make the human condition better, ways to help us extend this life and kind of not offset completely, but kind of slow down this broken condition and the darkness and the sickness and the disease and the killing and the murder, and ways to actually slow it down. So the creative aspect of what God gave us is still has positive influence in today's day and age. You know, but that first decision introduced a whole other set of human emotions, psychological motivators. You know, before that, hate wasn't in our realm. Jealousy wasn't in our realm. shame, ego, lust for power, fear. All these things we brought into our humanity. We brought into our lives. And so we have no right to blame God. He warned us, and we got everything that we asked for, the knowledge of evil. You know, God had already shown and given us everything that was good, already created us in his image and his likeness. So we were already like God. And all we got out of this was the knowledge and the ability to do evil. And here we are. You know, next week I'm going to talk more on the progression of how our choices in the beginning created the environmental chaos that we live in today. And while mankind has used the gift of creating what can be imagined to help man's life and our enjoyment, he also has used this gift of creating to create items of mass destruction, more creative way to dehumanize, to devalue people, to kind of be to be above other people. And so, you know, I hope I've laid a good foundation, and you can get an understanding of where this conversation is going, and how, you know, we can't blame God, because this was never God's intent. But if God steps in and decides to override our decisions, he's taken away the very gift he gave us of free will. And so the answer and the redeeming act, or the redeeming thing that we can do to start redeeming our lives, is also an act of free will, but an act of love also. And so as we wind down this show, I want to thank our sponsors, Motorcycle Mike, Mike Levine, Sharon Gillette, One Stitch at a Time. Also, I want to mention Samantha's Little Bit of Heaven Christian Coffee House on Larkfield Drive in Northport. I'll actually be speaking there Tuesday, the 18th of February, 7 o'clock. I'll be there sharing a message of moving into this new year, the year 2020. Also want to promote our church. We're the Rushing Wind Biker Church in Holbrook, New York. If you're looking for a church that's true Christian theology, but a little bit different, a little bit more casual, and less church-like environment, we're at 10 Peachtree Court in Holbrook, New York. Our website is rushingwindbc.org. If you want to donate to the furtherment of this show, maybe to the ministry of the Rushing Wind Biker Church, you can go to our website, again, rushingwindbc.org, and click on donate. Also, at the end of the show, you'll see a text to give number if you like to donate with technology, with your phones or whatever else. We've set up the availability for people who would like to, donate and maybe support what we're doing here. So this is Pastor Ski, Rushing Wind Biker Church. Have a great week. And next week, we're going to continue part 2 of the conversation, how could God be good in a world that seems so far from good? God bless you, and I'll talk to you next week.